It's time for the Kim Hammer Show, where you'll learn how your state government affects you, your family, and community. Here's Kim Hammer.
Good afternoon on what is an absolutely beautiful fall day. Don't you love it out there with the temperatures being the way they are, the humidity down? It's a great day to be out and about, whether you're working outside or I know some of you guys are out working on your deer camps and getting getting things ready for the hunting season. So I hope you're getting to take advantage of the beautiful outdoor weather. I want to say a special thanks to Senator Jason Rapert for filling in for me last week, and all the feedback about the show was good, high interest, and so I appreciate Senator Jason Rapert being on the show last week and covering it for me. Hopefully today, in just a little bit, we are going to have Representative John DeBerry, who is a state representative over in the Memphis, Tennessee area. We're going to play a clip here in just a minute of his speech on the House floor in the Tennessee House of Representatives, and hopefully he's going to be joining us. He hasn't called in yet, but he's scheduled to, so hopefully we'll hear from him in just a few minutes, and we're going to listen to the clip, and it'll kind of set the appetite for what hopefully will be a great conversation. With regards to the host of the show, as I always say, the opinions and thoughts expressed on this show are mine and mine alone, or those of my guests, and so we appreciate you just listening to a little housekeeping there. But to my sponsors, I appreciate Everett Buick GMC down in Saline County. Twice in the past month, they've won 2 national awards, and we'll talk more about that later, but they're to be commended. And anytime you go down there to Everett Buick GMC, you understand why they are award-winning automobile dealership. They are family-owned, customer service, customer-friendly, and so I encourage you to go down there if you're looking for a new GMC product. They're a great place to go and get all your automotive needs met, whether you're buying a car, looking to trade in and get a good trade-in value. Maybe you need to get your car serviced, or you want to buy a good pre-owned certified vehicle. They can take care of you all the way around. And then also I'd like to say thanks to Edwards Food Store. As I always tell you, they're a great, clean store. They've got good prices. The stores are staffed with friendly personnel that'll take care of you. You can order online, have it picked up there at the curb, or you can go in and shop. And the thing I like about the Edward Food Stores, they're big enough to take care of all your needs, but they're small enough to get around without having to spend half a day going from one side to the other. So they can take really good care of you and offer you good quality foods, whether it's in their meat department, produce department, dairy, just all the way around. They take really good care of you. And then also I want to thank Baxley Phillips Mouty. Appreciate them for being a supporter. They can take care of all your real estate needs here in Central Arkansas. They do a great job servicing you from the beginning to the end, whether you're looking to buy or sell. And real estate is hot right now. I know especially in Saline County, it's really hot. So it's a good time to list your home, or if you're looking to buy one, you better not wait too long because they're not staying on the market very long at all. But they can take care of you as far as whether you want to sell or whether you want to buy. You have property that you want to rent out, whether it's commercial or residential, they can take care of you in that area as well. Just want to give, again, a special recognition to Senator Jason Rapert for covering for me last week. So what we're going to do today, we're going to start off by listening to about a 10-minute clip. If you haven't heard this, this is Representative John DeBerry over in the Memphis, Tennessee area, and he serves in the House of Representatives. He is an individual that pretty well spoke his mind, and I really think that he speaks the mind of a lot of people. He was an instrument to deliver a message, and so I want you to take a listen to this, and then hopefully he'll be online with us by the time we get done with this. If not, I've got some other things to share regarding him.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't want to question the patriotism or the integrity of any of my colleagues who have spoken before me. That's not for me to do, just as it is not for them to do. We find ourselves doing it quite a bit in this body, and that's unfortunate because folks sent us here not to accuse each other of anything, but to do the job that they sent us to do. And I rise not to go against or support this legislation. I rise because I continue to hear references to what I saw in growing up in this country and growing up in the state of Tennessee as I walked with my father and worked with my father here in the state of Tennessee, in Memphis, Tennessee, and across this state and across this country, in the middle of what has been referenced to on several occasions, the civil rights movement. And you know, people continue to refer to this, but I saw it. I saw men and women stand with courage and integrity and class, and they changed the world. They changed the world because what the world could see in them was the lie that was being told about them. I am one of those individuals who walked in back doors because the law said I had to. I'm one of those individuals who rode on the back of the bus, on the back seats that were not cushioned because the law said I had to. I went to the water and drank colored water because the law said I had to. I went to a school where everybody looked like me and the country was divided and segregated because the law said that I had to. So all of these things we continue to refer to are the things that me and my generation lived. We saw it for ourselves. We're not reading it in the history books, but we lived it. I went with my father when he and our neighbor got one of those I am a man signs and went downtown Memphis and watched him stand there proudly with Dr. King and other men and women, black and white, who had enough courage to stand up against what was wrong. And the way they did it, they had on their suits, their shirts, their ties, their hats, and if it was cold, their overcoats. They locked arms and they marched peacefully, and Dr. King stood for that which was peaceful. Because the world took a look at what was happening in Memphis, in Chicago, in Detroit, in Washington, D.C., and all over this country, we changed the entire world. And we changed it because those men and women had enough guts, integrity, enough citizenship and love of country, because my father was a Korean War era soldier, as many of those other men and women were. They didn't beg for anything. They didn't beg for citizenship. They demanded it because they were American citizens who paid taxes, who raised children, who paid house notes and rent, and did everything they were supposed to do so that they could demand from this country and its Constitution those things that they were supposed to have. How did they do it? They did it by standing like men and women of integrity and class and common sense and values. When the riots started and folks started burning stuff down, that's when my father took my arm and we left. We left because that was not what we were there for. That was not what Dr. King was there for. That was not what others who are famous in the civil rights days were there for. This was not peaceful. It was not part of our movement, and it only hurt everything. That man lay in a pool of blood. I stood there and watched him make a speech. The building wasn't really full. It was crowded because there was a terrible storm that night. But my daddy was intending, and most certainly, he wanted to hear that speech and wanted me to be there. I gave my seat to a lady who came in wringing wet and stood over, not because there weren't any other seats, but because I could stand against the wall and be closer as he spoke. I watched that man shiver. I watched his voice shake. I watched him tremble because he knew something. He knew that he probably wasn't going to leave Memphis. I don't know what providence God had given to make him prepare for this when he said he'd been to the mountaintop. I don't know what he was thinking when he said, I may not get there with you. But something told that good man on that terrible stormy night that something bad was getting ready to happen. Whenever we use the opportunity to do wrong, that policeman that put his foot on that man's neck was wrong, and every one of us in this room decry it. Every one of us in this room condemn it. We say it was wrong. And in America, we have a system of justice. A system of justice that's going to bring the full impact of the law down upon him. And I think every one of us in this room will support that. And we know that man lay there in a pool of blood. This man didn't die surrounded by his children and his wife. He died in a pool of blood from a coward's bullet, and he died on that day. And I remember as we went back to Memphis and all of the riots broke loose, everything he stood for was all of a sudden being torn down until calmer voices came and said, Dr. King was against this. He was against this. He was against this. My family raised money and sent my dad to Washington for that march, where that man stood there and said that he wanted his children judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And all we do in America right now is talk about color. Every issue is about race, it's about color. Instead of us sitting down at the table like men and women of common sense and common justice, and understanding that our enemies are looking with a greedy vigilance upon us as we tear ourselves apart eternally. They have been watching us for 50 years, preparing step by step by step by step for us to kill ourselves. And I may not be back here next year. And I'm sure everything I say is going to be misconstrued and misquoted and used against me in November. Fine, because I stand for my father's legacy. I stand for the men and women who acted like they had some sense and some courage and changed this country by being men and women who stood for something. If we don't start standing for something, don't you know that the people who are looking at what's happening in Washington, in Detroit, in Portland, and Seattle, they're getting emboldened because we act like a bunch of punks, too frightened to stand up and protect our own stuff. You tell me that somebody got the right to tear down property that Tennessee taxpayers paid for? That American taxpayers paid for, and somebody has the right to destroy it, deface it, and tear it down? What kind of people have we become that we can't protect our own stuff? And when the heroes are those who violate the law, our police chief in Memphis, Tennessee, when they shut the bridge down between Memphis and Arkansas, our police chief walked up there because it was a peaceful protest, even though they had shut down that bridge. He walked up there, he talked to the protesters, he let them know that they had a right to protest, and after a while, he walked them all off the bridge. Because they conducted themselves properly, he conducted himself properly, and there was no one harmed on that evening. Peaceful protest ends peacefully. Anarchy ends in chaos. And what we see happening right now, any of us with any common sense whatsoever, know that what we see is not peaceful. So we can continue to fool ourselves and mix with words and use rhetoric and public relations in order to frost this stuff over and put a nice picture on what we see that is frightening. I have a nephew who is a policeman who talked about getting attacked the other night. You're telling me that somebody has the right to throw feces and urine in the face of those that we as taxpayers pay to protect us, and that's okay? What has happened to us? If we don't get this right now, I've got grandchildren. I don't want to see the country we're going to have 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. If we don't start acting like we got some guts, right now, brethren, sisterin, friends, colleagues, right now.
That should make you want to stand up and cheer and say amen for that gentleman right there. Now, he was supposed to call in, but for some reason he hasn't. But on live radio, you always have one in the hole waiting. So let me read you an article that kind of outlines where Representative John DeBerry is now. And part of the focus on this is that he has been a long-standing Democrat over in the Democrat Party in the state of Tennessee. But as you might have listened through his comments, obviously he's had a change of heart. And because of that, it has cost him as far as the way the Democrat Party is treating him. So let me read to you an article from the Tennessean. It says, a longtime Memphis Democrat ousted by state party officials last month and removed from the 2020 ballot is considering running as an independent, a decision he could make with a new bill introduced by Republicans. Representative John DeBerry, who is removed from the House District 90 primary ballot last month by the Tennessee Democratic Party State Executive Committee, said Tuesday he is still mulling a run for the seat he has held for 26 years. Quote, my district has elected me 13 times, DeBerry said after a House committee meeting, not just because I'm John DeBerry or because I'm a Democrat, but because they agree with what I have fought for and what I stood for. The statewide committee took issue with DeBerry's voting record, which often aligned with Republicans on issues like abortion and school choice, and his history of accepting donations from GOP-aligned political action committees. Its vote to remove him from the ballot came after filing deadline had passed, preventing DeBerry from filing again under another party. That sounds like gerrymandering. The people in my district did not take me off the ballot, DeBerry said. A tribunal took me off the ballot that has absolutely nothing to do with my district. An election bill filed earlier this year by Senator Farrell Hale, Republican from Gallatin, is now being amended to allow someone in DeBerry's position to run on the opposing political party's ticket or as an independent. Representative Tom Leatherwood, Republican from Arlington, Tennessee, will be carrying the House bill, Hale said. With the amendment, Senate Bill 247 and House Bill 225 authorize an incumbent who has disqualified by his or her party's executive committee to file a new petition as a candidate for another political party or as an independent candidate, even after the unusual filing deadline, it says. The amendment, obtained by the Tennessean, says the incumbent could file again up to 90 days before the primary election if filing as a candidate for a different political party, or 90 days before the general election if running as an independent. The 90-day deadline for DeBerry to refile before the August 6th primary has already passed, meaning he could not run as a Republican this year, but he could run affiliated if the legislation passes. DeBerry says he'll make a decision based on how the bill is received by colleagues. The bill, not yet scheduled in the House, will be taken up when the state Senate and local government committees meet, Hale said. They have a right to say they want to disassociate with that party, DeBerry said, that of the state Democratic Party's decision. They do not have a right to disassociate me with District 90. I'm going to see what the legislature is doing to rectify this situation. DeBerry said many people in his district have already urged him to run on as a write-in candidate. He is now considering getting the general election ballot, though. I'm making that decision once I see the bill, the atmosphere in which the bill is passed, or whether or not it is conducive to me continuing to serve in the body and not just injuring this body or my own reputation, he said. And let me just stop right here and say this about the guy. That statement right there says something, I think, to the quality of the person. It says, I'll make that decision once I see the bill, the atmosphere in which the bill is passed, or whether or not it is conducive to me continuing to serve in this body and not injuring this body or my own reputation. Committee meetings are resuming this week ahead of the legislature's June 1st session after the General Assembly in mid-March went on recess due to the COVID-19 virus. GOP state sponsor says he expects bipartisan support. Lawmakers are returning to make further cuts to the budget, though House leadership has signaled an interest in passing a wide variety of bills related to the pandemic, despite Senate leadership saying such legislation can wait till January. Hale said his bill falls under the Senate criteria for which legislation should be taken up in the next couple of weeks, meaning a bill must pertain to the COVID virus, but pertinent to the budget or be time sensitive or unable to wait until January. His would fall into the latter category, and he said his effort has bipartisan support. I expect there to be co-sponsors, both Democrat and Republicans, Hale said, declining to name specific members. Two Memphis Democrat lawmakers who voted in the party committee proceeding in April, Representative G.A. Hardaway, who chairs the Black Caucus, and Senate Democrat Caucus Chair, who voted against DeBerry's removal from the ballot. That's a good sign. House Minority Leader Karen Camper, another Memphis Democrat, condemned the committee's decision afterwards, saying it was attempting to nullify the choice of the people of the 90th district. Republican leadership in both chambers also spoke out against the Tennessee National Democrat Party's decision, which was also made during a conference call for which the public notice was not given. Party chairwoman Mary Mancini confirmed afterwards that DeBerry had not been personally informed that his Democrat position would be up for vote that day, nor was he given the opportunity to speak before the vote. DeBerry later unsuccessfully appealed the party's decision to remove him from the primary ballot. DeBerry said he has not been involved in the drafting of the legislation, and Hale called DeBerry a personal friend. I think his constituents deserve the opportunity to elect him or not elect him, Hale said. The bill's financial impact is estimated to be not significant, according to the legislature's Financial Review Committee. Such a change would likely not result in substantial number of new candidates in an election and will not significantly impact current local or state election procedures, the committee wrote. That's in the Tennessean if you want to go look it up and read it for yourself, but that kind of summarizes the intent of what's going on behind Representative John DeBerry. Now, the reason I find this significant, and I wanted to get him on the radio today, is because he is a Democrat who is being ousted by his own party because he has a reputation of voting more with the Republicans on key issues that Republicans and conservatives hold near and dear to their heart. That would be conservative financial matters. That would also be with pro-life agenda. It would also be with the school choice agenda, but it would also be with other conservative values. And for that, he was going to be kicked out of the Democrat Party. Now, you can take that and draw your own conclusions, but the fact that the man had this courage to stand up and to speak on the floor the way that he did, I think reflects upon who he is as a person, and I think this will be an interesting story to follow. And quite honestly, I hope the man gets reelected. We're going to change gears right now for just a second, and we're going to bring John Vincent on, who is with the Arkansas Pharmacists Association. Hopefully, we'll be able to get Representative John DeBerry on at another time, and he can comment on what's happening over there, and we can be kept up to date with it. But I'm going to shift gears for a minute because I got John Vincent, who is with the Arkansas Pharmacists Association, and there was a key event that happened this past week that we spoke about probably 3 or 4 months ago. And John, thanks for stepping in at the last minute and coming on the Kim Hammer Show. And real quickly, before we take a break at the bottom of the hour, share with the listening audience, if you would, what happened that's of significant nature this past week in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, Kim, thanks for having me on. This is John Vincent with the Arkansas Pharmacists Association here in Little Rock, and I'd be remiss if I didn't say what a beautiful Saturday it is. What a great day to enjoy our state. In U.S. Supreme Court, there is a case that for the first time in our state's history that our Attorney General of the state of Arkansas have successfully filed and been granted petition to have a case heard in pharmacy industry that's really important to lowering drug prices for our consumers and businesses and keeping access to your preferred local pharmacy. But the announcement was that the oral argument that AG Leslie Rutledge she and her team, Solicitor General Nick Bronny, will argue before the U.S. Supreme Court. It will be broadcast live across the nation via telephone where anybody can tune in and hear what that argument is about.
I'll tell you what we're going to do, John. If you can hang on, we're going to take a break, and I'll get you to come in after the bottom of the hour after the break. I want to give a shout out to my sponsors, which are Everett Buick GMC down in Saline County. Also want to thank Edward Food Stores here in Central Arkansas, over in East Arkansas, and also want to thank Baxley Penfield Mowdy Real Estate. Take care of all your real estate needs. We're going to take a quick break, come back and pick up our conversation with John Vincent. We'll talk about the Supreme Court case. I want to talk to you about Medicare D a little bit, John, because the retired state employees are now being forced over to the Medicare D program off of the pharmacy program that they had previously with the state, and then also talk about a new company that's coming into the state that was just recognized by the state of Arkansas that maybe can help with your drug benefit cost as well. This is Kim Hammer Show. Hope you'll hang on and come back after the break.
Take The Answer with you anywhere with our free mobile app, 1011FMTheAnswer.com, your smart speakers, iHeart, or radio.com. Breaking news and stimulating talk. 101.1 FM, The Answer.
Do you have an IRA, 401k, or other tax-deferred retirement account? You want to think of this as being your money, right? But it's really a joint account between you and the IRS. Learn how you could dramatically reduce or potentially eliminate your taxes in retirement. Don't miss the David Lucas Show, Saturdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m., right here on 101.1, The Answer.
Is the United States of America part of God's great plan for the world? Now, a new documentary, Trump 2024, The World After Trump, takes a look at what the world could look like in 2024 with or without President Trump. Trump 2024 features interviews with Franklin Graham, Mike Huckabee, Dennis Prager, and Eric Metaxas. Watch Trump 2024, The World After Trump on salemnow.com. That's salemnow.com. Trump 2024. Watch now at salemnow.com.
How much money have you saved for retirement? You probably know the answer. But if I asked you how much you'll pay in taxes on that money when you retire, you know, most people, they don't have a clue. And that, my friends, is downright scary. Learn how you could save a small fortune in taxes in retirement on the David Lucas Show, Saturdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 2 p.m., right here on 101.1, The Answer.
Hi, this is Jim Daly. Abortion has devastated the hearts and homes of women, men, and families. Join the movement to end abortion and love every heartbeat. Text heartbeat to 72,000.
Where are we headed? Globalism? A new world order? A singular government power?
If we yield over and decide that America is not unique, it's not special, it's not extraordinary, we no longer are the United States of America. We're just a piece of a bigger government.
And what about prophecy? Is the United States of America part of God's great plan for the world? Now, a new documentary, Trump 2024, The World After Trump, takes a look at what the world could look like in 2024 with or without President Trump. Trump 2024 features interviews with Franklin Graham, Mike Huckabee, Dennis Prager, and yours truly, Eric Metaxas.
The Messiah will not arrive on Air Force One.
Watch Trump 2024, The World After Trump on salemnow.com. That's salemnow.com. Trump 2024.
Go to salemnow.com to watch Trump 2024. That's salemnow.com. salemnow.com.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Kim Hammer Show on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. As John Vincent mentioned a while ago, who is the president of the Arkansas Pharmacists Association, and hope that you're out enjoying a beautiful Saturday. Again, thank you to my sponsors, which would be Everett Buick GMC, also Edwards Food Store, Edwards Food Giant, as well as Baxley Phillips Mowdy Real Estate. Appreciate all of them helping make this show possible every Saturday at noon here on 101.1 FM The Answer, or you're watching Facebook Live. We're glad to have Facebook back up and running here at 101.1 FM The Answer, so glad that you're joining us Facebook Live. I do not know if you are a believer or not. By that, I mean, you know, Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, and you believe that God is his Heavenly Father and the Holy Spirit is the power of God that moves among us in order to direct us in life. But if you've ever sat in the chair that I'm sitting in doing a live radio show and your agenda unravels on you, today has been nothing short of an answer of prayer immediately before God with immediate answer, because I got John on. But what is else also is interesting and just kind of, I think, a sign from God is joining us in just a little bit will be Ron Smedley. He is the Director of Mission Recovery. He is a pastor out of East Texas that's going to be joining us here in just a minute. And there's Sunday week, a week from this Sunday, it is a focus on mission recovery, which is working with the churches to help people recover from addictions. And so it's kind of a holistic picture that all this has come together today. Let me get back to John real quick, because you were talking about the Supreme Court decision. And when is that going to be heard, John? I'm not sure I heard when you said it was going to be on, or when it was going to be heard.
Yeah, thanks for asking that. So the case itself, the oral arguments will happen on Tuesday, October 6th. It'll be the third case of the new Supreme Court term. It'll be 9 a.m. Central Standard Time, and the arguments typically last about an hour. They can sometimes go, an hour and 15 minutes or whatever the Chief Justice allows on the timetable. But those arguments will happen 9 a.m. our time. They're broadcast through telephone, through, the internet. I know C-SPAN and some others will have them broadcast through their websites online, and we're looking forward to hearing how that case is heard.
I'm wondering how that will play out with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the number of judges that are on the Supreme Court. How could that affect the outcome of the case if they don't have a new Supreme Court justice appointed by October 6th, or do you know?
I think that's a great question. It's a little bit too early to know the answer to that, but I would like to make a couple of comments. First, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, I know there's an outpouring of love and support to celebrate her life. She's an icon. When you think of, Supreme Court justices that the average person knows them by name, she's one of the few. And she obviously has been a fierce advocate for equality, between men, women, rights of our country, and defending the Constitution. So, rest in peace, Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg. But in order to answer your question, early reports out from our attorneys that help write an amicus brief, in support of Leslie Rutledge in the state of Arkansas, our Attorney General. We expect the case to go on as planned. We'll certainly, hear more in the next week, but we expect it to still happen. In terms of a ruling, and how it might affect the case, they're not going to name a new justice, by 2 weeks from now. I don't believe that's possible. But so there likely will be 8 justices that hear the case. And then whether or not those 8 justices would rule on the case, or whether they would hold it back for, a new appointed Supreme Court justice to have 9 weigh in on the decision, is yet to be determined. But as soon as we know, we'll get that information to you.
All right. Indy Health, a new group that's coming into the state. Can you speak about them for just a second? I'm going to get them on the show sometime down the road, but talk about them for just a second, because it may be of interest to the listening audience, especially if they're going to be looking for a Medicare Part D plan.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So, of course, those of you who've been following some of, the president's comments on drug prices and the policy he's been working on, President Trump, as well as, our state legislators like yourself and Representative Michelle Gray and Ron Caldwell. And it's been in bipartisan, fashion with folks like Senator Bruce Malek and others, that have weighed in to kind of, decrease some of these bad acts that are occurring by middlemen that are driving up drug prices. And that has not just been in state plans, but it has also been in our federal plans like Medicare. And, this new company, Indy Health, applied for a license in Arkansas. It was started by 10 independent pharmacy owners from small pharmacies who were sick and tired of seeing seniors being taken advantage of, patients like my mom, who's a retired school teacher. There's companies that they'll actually make the price of the drug higher at the point of sale, even higher than what the pharmacist would charge in a cash environment. Prior to 2018, they had gag clauses in the contracts that wouldn't allow the pharmacist to even tell a patient. That's been changed at the federal level and state level. But long story short, Kim, our state is a friendly business state. They have approved their license in our state. They've become approved through CMS, and they're going to launch in 5 states, with Arkansas being one of the 5 states, and they're not going to have hidden premiums. They're going to have upfront lowest price for consumers at the point of sale, and they're going to allow consumers to use their preferred local pharmacy, brick and mortar, preferred relationship with who they want to use, rather than try to steer them to out-of-state mail-order pharmacies that are owned by the middlemen. So we're really excited about it. We think it'll bring a first-of-its-kind type of plan to this program federally. And once again, just like with the Supreme Court case, the state of Arkansas is a leader in drug pricing transparency and bringing the best solution that is patient-centered rather than one that is middleman or Wall Street profit-generated.
I know that the insurance commissioner's office is working diligently to enforce some legislation, and some things are coming out, I think, in the next 2 to 4 weeks. They're going to be interesting as far as how it impacts the PBMs with the laws that everybody's worked as a collaborative effort in order to make happen. I know there's some, distinction of high importance with the Supreme Court picking up this case. So one thing I want to share with the listening audience is, with everything that has been done, hopefully between now and the end of the year, we'll be able to see some changes and some better pricing in the pharmacy cost. I know the retired state employees are experiencing a little bit of a shock because they are going to be removed from the state employee retirement plan as far as the pharmaceutical benefits, and are going to be moved over to the Medicare D plan. How many companies in Arkansas, or do you know, John, I'm putting you on the spot, but how many companies in Arkansas sell Medicare D plans?
There's about 27 different options there. And some of those are, multiple plan designs by the same company. And this new one that Indy Health is launching will make approximately 28. We won't know for sure exactly how many companies for 2021 until as we get closer to enrollment in the middle of October. But CMS, of course, licenses and approves, and there are new companies that come in and drop out every year. So when we get closer to enrollment date, we'll know exactly how many companies.
Okay. Well, I know one of the difficult things, because a lot of constituents have been calling me this past week talking about, what's happening with the retired state employees. But one individual told me, he said, you got to have a college degree, and I'm not sure what the degree would be in order to understand all the various plans that are out there and how it fits to each individual. And if I remember what was said, and you correct me if I'm, giving out misinformation, but an individual would call and they would actually input the medicines that they take, and would the system then identify which plans are best for that individual, or how does that work when somebody needs to transition over to a Medicare D plan?
Yeah, that is one way that you can do it, but there are also a lot of pharmacies that have software that integrates with the Part D plan design. Instead of having to manually do all that like you just described, it'll actually automate and pull your drug fill history from the local pharmacy software and generate those kind of results in a matter of about 15 seconds. So, I know, Ann Pace at Kavanaugh and Little Rock. If you just picking on her for a second, because she's a friend of mine, and I know she does a great job helping consumers to find the answer to that question. Which one has the best premiums? Which one covers your drugs? Which one allows you to use your preferred pharmacy? All those things kind of factor into that decision making, but it can be done manually like you described, or you can utilize or partner with a pharmacy that has that software that makes it quicker and more efficient for you.
I tell you what, in the next few weeks, want to have a show about the retired state employees and being moved over to the Medicare D. So I'll get you back on. So, because one thing we want to do is we want to make sure that we provide the easiest pathway forward. I would focus you on your local pharmacy that you would use, or your local independent pharmacy that you would use, because I do think you're going to get that hometown personal touch when you're dealing with a local pharmacy that is independently owned. I think they'll just do a really good job of taking care of you on this. John,
If
I'm
you
going to.
don't,
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say super quick. I do want to put a shout out for the way that program's been run. You know, Chris Howlett, the director over there, does a great job, and they use, you know, UAMS College of Pharmacy, and they run that plan transparently, which is why I think a lot of the reason why the retirees are upset is because they do get the lowest price. They do get the discounts from rebates from manufacturers passed on to the patients to keep that price down, and that doesn't always happen in the Part D plans.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll work it out in the next couple of weeks to have you back on. Might get Dwayne from over UAMS on with EBRX, and we'll just have a conversation about all this that's going on. Maybe by then the Supreme Court will have heard the case, and maybe we will have the results, and we'll just kind of build the show around that. I want to invite you to stay on if you've got time, John, because I know you kind of came in unexpectedly last minute, and I appreciate that. But if you want to hang on for the rest of the show, I've got Ron Smedley, who's a pastor from East Texas associated with Mission Recovery. And a Sunday week, that'd be September 27th, and he can straighten me out if I've got the wrong information, is what I'm going to call Recovery Sunday, where the churches will be focusing on individuals that have addiction issues, because it's not only outside the church, it's also inside the church that this problem exists. So I want to welcome to the Kim Hammer Show this afternoon, Ron Smedley, and thank you for being on the Kim Hammer Show.
Good afternoon, Senator Hammer. I thank you so much for having me on. Actually, in the state of my father's birth, so I have Arkansas blood. My program director actually lives in Conway, so it's a pleasure to be with you. And I also want to thank you for all that you do to advocate for the values that this nation was founded upon. And thanks for allowing me to promote Recovery Sunday. And you're correct. It's the 27th. It actually coincides with September's National Recovery Month. And I was given a voice 2 years ago because I've been a pastor for 40 years and also a parole officer in the state of Texas.
You've seen it from both sides then. So tell what Recovery Sunday is and what Mission Recovery, and that's the name of your organization, correct? It's Mission Recovery?
Yes, Mission Recovery is I direct to come alongside churches so they can engage in this problem. And then Recovery Sunday is just a day that we set aside. Some have previously participated and given the whole service over to it. Recovery-themed music, recovery-themed sermons and scriptures, powerful testimonies. And the response has been overwhelming because, Senator Hammer, so many people are affected by this issue, and they're looking for help and hope. But because of the pandemic, and people are hurting all the more right now, we're asking people to at least set aside some time on Sunday, the September the 27th, for pastors to say, we hear you, we acknowledge your pain, we want to give you hope, and we want to give you prayer. And not to minimize prayer, because the Bible says that the prayer of a righteous man avails much. And we see it really makes a difference when you pray over these hurting individuals and their family members.
So how did Mission Recovery get started? I'm looking at your website, which is a nice website, by the way. How did Mission Recovery get started?
Well, as I said, because of a relationship with Survivors and Victims Empowered, I've been one of their board members for almost 30 years. And with my experience as a caseworker and parole officer and as a pastor, they felt I would have a really good voice to have a balanced approach to both knowing how the system has seen addiction and also being a pastor, knowing how powerful I was working with the state when George Bush started the faith-based initiatives. And believe it or not, Senator Hammer, they were actually asking ministries to come in because they were seeing the fruit of the transforming power of Jesus Christ to change and rescue lives. And so that's how it came about for me to be a voice. And on an aside, I always wanted to be a broadcaster, so now I'm getting to use my voice both on the radio and to broadcast the good news to people that are hurting and dying. So how far-reaching is Mission Recovery? How many states are you in now? And as far as other than just promoting, helping people through the recovery process, do you have treatment programs, or what is the base of what you do in the real world to help people? Actually, what we actually advocate and equip. We are offering, actually, I'll go ahead ahead and say one of the things, if you'll go to recoverysunday.com, and your listeners especially, if you'll look at our website, you'll see Recovery Sunday, and you'll also see some programs that we offer. What we're really excited about, Senator, is that a lot of pastors don't know what to do, and 80% of people that are hurting and in crisis come to churches first. And so we're really excited that we offer a 52-week free plug-and-play curriculum that addresses all these relevant issues. But we don't have a program as far as treatment ourselves. We just try to move information to give a voice, to advocate for this issue, and to equip pastors. And another thing that people don't think about, Senator Hammer, is that for every addict, no matter what the addiction is, there are 5 people affected negatively, 5 people. And so with the addiction, with the emotional and mental health behind it and affected individuals, every congregation, every community, at least 30% of every church has people that are struggling, and 65% of churches don't have a program to address this. So we want to both motivate, to get the churches and pastors to engage, and we want to give them this curriculum. I like Life Recovery, Celebrate Recovery. I've been involved in these programs, but ours is a freedom-based program to help people deal with freedom from shame, their identity in Christ, forgiveness from sin. And behind every addiction, what I've found for 22 years, opioids is physical pain, but every other addiction, there's some kind of emotional pain that people are trying to self-medicate from. And the church has the answers, the church has the community, and Jesus is the ultimate pain taker. And he said he came to preach good news to the poor, to bind up broken hearts, and to set captives free. And that's also our mission, to try to talk about this, to give voice, and to get churches to engage, because there is a real mission field. There is a real harvest out there.
So you've been listening. I know you've been on the hold for a little bit, and I've got John Vincent, who's the president of Arkansas Pharmacists Association. And one thing that, John and many others, in the legislative branch, the governor, everybody has turned their focus on the long-reaching effects of someone that is addicted. And you mentioned a while ago, it touches 1 in 5. And that could be 1 in 5 in the family. It could be 1 in 5 in the community, 1 in 5 at the employment, 1 in 5 in the church. You mentioned that you're also a parole officer. How have you found it effective balancing or bringing together the work of the church and the work of the government with the resources the government has in order to make a meaningful impact on a portion of our society that's dealing with addiction?
Well, the current stats say 23 million Americans are addicted. That's 12 years and older. To be frank with you, that's what the professionals say. My experience is greater than that, especially if you deal with abuse and using too much. But then you also have 11 million opioid addicts. And in 2017 alone, 191 million, that's a million opioid prescriptions, and only 10% of people that are addicted get help. My experience as a parole officer and pastor, 80% of people that need help can't get it because they don't have any financial resources. They burn bridges. They have no insurance. There's good programs out there, but not enough, especially in the rural areas. I worked in Dallas, Fort Worth, and then in East Texas, and there aren't a lot of resources. But the church is a resource. The church has community. It has intensive discipleship. It has resources to be able to invest in Christ-centered recoveries. And I would say, to your original question, I was sitting in the parole office in 1994 when they were actually asking churches to come into the parole office because they saw the fruit of and results of people in recovery from a Christ-centered approach. So again, we're trying to bring the two worlds together so that they won't be adversarial, but they will all work for the same purpose of reaching hurting people and their affected families.
So, John, let me bring you into the conversation for just a second, because there is an active lawsuit going on by many states that have joined to sue the drug manufacturers for purposely getting people addicted to opioids. And we know that settlement is working out. I think Oklahoma reached their settlement in the last couple of weeks. I know Arkansas is in line. They're working out the details. Each state is kind of working their own settlement with the court on that. Just bring your expertise as far as what you think, if you feel comfortable talking about it, as far as the drug manufacturers contributing to the opioid problem. Another perspective on that also is what doctors, and there's a change in the mentality and the culture at the schools who educate the medical field to try to turn them away. It seems like for a while it was like, have surgery, here's you a couple bottles, go home and, call me on the other side of it. But there's a change in the culture. So just give it to us from your perspective, John.
I would just say that there was definitely misinformation, given to physicians and other prescribers, for opioids and, and how safe they were versus how dangerous they were. And that's been obviously the subject of the lawsuits that you're discussing. From our perspective, we have, of course, worked with the state legislature, you and others. I know you were a sponsor on an electronic prescribing bill, last session that mirrors federal law to make it easier to, prevent fraud and fraud, waste, and abuse of certain prescriptions that shouldn't, that didn't actually come from a prescriber. But we are just doing our best to kind of change the narrative on what is the safety of these medicines and when should they be used and how should they be monitored, and to make sure they're being used for conditions for which they're safe to use to be treat patients.
All right. And I know that the in our world, we call it the PDMP bill, Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. I think State Drug Director Kirk Lane said the other day that we've gone from 49 down to 43. So there is some measurable impact that is being seen because of the efforts. But to bring in Ron to the conversation of what he's doing, the church can play a big part in helping individuals, both on the preventive side, but also on the recovery side. Ron, let me ask you again, what is the website that you want, the primary website you want people to go to get information?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. RecoverySunday.com. And let me just add, too, to what you guys were discussing. It's very good. 700,000 souls, 700 precious souls died to overdose, 120 every day. And that is up 49% now because of this pandemic. So please join us in helping save lives. Go to RecoverySunday.com. We have things programs that can guide you, give you more information about how that we can help rescue hurting Americans and their family members.
All right. I'll tell you what, we will get that up on the Kim Hammer Show website so people can go to it. And also, if they go up to the RecoverySunday.com, will they be able to see the information you were talking about on the program, or do you have to set up a relationship with the church, and then the church is the one that actually pushes out that information?
That's a good question. They go to recovery.com and they can sign up for resources. Then we will follow up with them from there. It'll lead them to the toolkits and to Mission Recovery. But Recovery Sunday is the one-day effort, and then Mission Recovery is our main website.
Okay.
But go to recoverysunday.com, September 27th.
Okay. All right, there you go. So, Pastor, if you're listening, there's an opportunity for you. And tell us again, Ron, September is what? Addiction Recovery Month?
Yes, sir. It's traditionally in our nation been known as National Recovery Month. So we're taking the last Sunday just to get churches to engage.
Okay. All right. Very good. Well, I'm down to the last minute. Ron, I'll be calling you personally. We'll have a conversation about what you can do to help in ours. John Vincent, I appreciate you stepping in and helping out. And just remember, if you will, 1 in 5 people are affected by one person's decision. And so that represents a significant number in the state of Arkansas, let alone the nation. So let's put some focus on it. A week from this Sunday for Recovery Sunday, you can go to recoverysunday.com, or you can go to Mission Recovery if you like more information about that program. And you can get up on the Kim Hammer website. We'll get that up in the next day or two, so you can just come to the KimHammerShow.com website and get that information. This is the Kim Hammer Show. Thank you for joining us on an absolutely beautiful Saturday afternoon. I hope you get out and enjoy it. And also want to thank the sponsors again, which would be Everett Buick GMC down in Saline County. Great place to go get your automobile, get at your service as well. Edwards Food Store here in Central Arkansas, over in East Arkansas, and then Baxley Phillips Mowdy Real Estate for all your real estate need. Just be thankful that you live in America. Be thankful that you live in Arkansas, And my prayer is today that you would just seek God for guidance. We ask all, and thank you for joining us on the Kim Hammer Show.
101.1 FM, The Answer. KDXE FM, Kamak Village, Little Rock. A Salem Media Group station. 101.1 FM, The Answer.